All right, everybody, we're getting ready to do the next episode of our show. So excited to have my new friend Roland. And is it Lazenby? Is that right, Roland?
Lazenby.
Lazenby. I'm glad I asked you that because it's
Jack
like,
Jack Kent Cook told me once, former owner of the Lakers and the Redskins, told me once I didn't know how to pronounce my own name. I said, "Well, that's the way my daddy pronounced it, so that I'm going with that."
Lazenby. And Sandy was like, yeah, make sure you talk to Roland about that. I'm like, yep, for sure, for sure. I don't want to go. I've done that before. We've been doing this a while now. This is our 13th season in this on this gig. And
Congratulations.
yeah, thanks, man. It's been it was our exit strategy post our careers. And everybody's got to have these things like with what I call it the retirement zone and refiring. And then instead of retiring, you've probably heard me say that a little bit now. All of it's about just doing more of something. You can, and it's like this, as I'm coaching people and training, it's like, you can do this and you can retire, or you can do this and refire. And like you're a refiring, I mean, you got it down. I mean, and that's the thing. And that's where people are like, I'm going to play golf and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. People work in long-term careers, like 30 and out, 40 and out, whatever, at big institutions or corporate or whatever. And then they find themselves just kind of lost. And I don't know if you have friends like that, but
I
we have
do.
plenty of them. Yeah. I mean, we have very, very good friends from the university, and I love maintaining my connection out there. As a matter of fact, I like my role now more than I had when I was actually on campus working full time, because I'm on campus every day anyways. And it's like, I'm a free agent. I can do whatever I want. I can come and go. I can promote whoever I want. We're on the campus radio station in one of our stations, as far as the broadcast side of it goes. So it's all good. And
You can freelance in lifelong learning, which is all I want to do is keep learning.
exactly, freelance and lifelong learning. So I'm going to write that down. Freelance and in lifelong learn. And that's what I see. I was a non-traditional. I went back to school in my 40s. I transferred in all my credits from when I was a young dumbass. And I started back at when I was 40 years old, and I finished my bachelor's in 6 years, just taking a class a semester. And then I finished my master's in 3 years, and my department paid for the whole thing. And so that was all through my 40s, from 40 to 49. So 9 years of that. And it was just a blessing because it
That's
gave,
a powerful thing.
well, thank you. It's just it helped me build my skill set for all of this. And it gave me so much confidence. And it's like, well, we can do this. And it's really becomes one of these where when I do my dad talks, I don't know if you've seen some of my videos, where I get a little crazy, but I do my hashtag dad talks every morning, and just trying to just tell people every day, get a little bit better. Just get better every day. Just get better. And
And
when
learn a little more.
exactly, I mean, make new friends, become more social, just do more of life. Like you say, freelance in life, live. Don't just be a couch potato. If you want to do that, hey, good for you. Fine. But let me tell you, as a trainer and as somebody who studies this shit very, very closely, the best thing you can do, this. I mean, look at you with your injury now. You're just like, right, you're chomping at the bit to get back at your game and get back on that rower. I know you are.
Fortunately, I got a great physical therapist. So many people, when they, particularly aging people, when they suffer an injury,
Yep.
it's just overwhelming to them. And one of the paths out is a great physical therapist who really knows how to get you into things. And if you have that right attitude, good things happen.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You get the right trainers, you get the right docs, you get the right people who are contributing to the success of your life. And it's like, that's what I was talking about with you. And I wanted to get you with Dave, and Dave was so excited to get with you. I want to do these three guys talking sports episode as soon as we can, because I think that this could be really big, and we're going to be really fun for sure. And I just drive, and you and I will talk, and Dave, and we could just come up with, you'll see once we do this episode how the show is kind of built. And so it'll go so fast, but it will have like 4 topics, because we have the beginning segment is always, this is your life That's what we'll do this time as well. I always do the same stuff. And then segments 2, 3, 4, and 5 are whatever topics we come up with. Now today we're just going to do high altitude on the book and your life. I'm really interested, and I love backstory of people's lives. And so it's like I'm going to ask you those questions. It's like, Roland, I mean, this book is awesome. But before we get into the nitty gritty of the book, we may take the whole second segment, talk about you and your life. And so think about the first segment is this is your life. This is, talk about your family, your kids, whatever you want to talk about. And then we can piggyback onto that as far as how you did this, because you have a very interesting, I mean, have you thought about writing your own life story? Have you thought about that?
I generally like to write books that sell.
You know what? Let's see how this episode does, and we'll take it from there. And I'm sure you got a great agent, but you got a new friend here because I love talking to you. And it's like
Likewise, Tom. Thank you.
it's gonna be my pleasure. It's gonna be fucking awesome. So of course I won't be swearing during the broadcast when the
Right, not right. Me either.
And excuse me if my language, I know you've been a coach for a long time, so I'm sure it doesn't matter, but I try to preface all of my cursing with my cursing is more for emphasis. It's nothing to be derogatory. It's nothing to take offense. If it offends people, I try. Like my wife, she's like, you got to kind of watch your, be careful with. So, but I know you're a coach and you're a sports guy, so it's like you've heard it all. Let me tell you, man. And
I should take more notice when people are cursing a lot. But I had a meeting this morning. I just said, listen to yourself. I'm sitting there cussing so much. It was ridiculous.
Well,
really.
I when I was the headset technician at Michigan State, which I did for 20 years, and I was a lead guy for many years. My last big bowl game was the 100th Rose Bowl, and we won that, thank God. And
Yeah.
But I have heard coaches, because I monitor the coaches. I'm the guy on the sideline who's the lead tech. Who, if the headset for the coach breaks,
Wow.
they're coming running to me to just get my shit. And so my defensive coordinators that I've had in the past, there is a couple of guys. I won't say their names right now, not while we're recording, because I don't want to piss them off. But they took cursing to the, I mean, so far out. It was unbelievable. It's like how you could even think this way and put the string together and actually make sense. It's just hilarious.
Football is a cussing culture. I played a year of college football. After high school football, at every level you go up, the cussing elevates dramatically.
What about in the NBA? We could talk about that too. I mean, you've probably heard a lot of trash talking, and it's probably has it gotten better or gotten worse? I don't know.
Oh no. Oh no. In our culture, it's all elevated. Time has just made it. I came along in the South in the 50s and 60s. It was a Sunday school culture.
Uh-huh.
And my old man taught Sunday school and sang in the church choir, and he could bust you up if you got out of line. So it was, but when I was out playing football and running the streets and having fun, that just made the cussing all the better.
Yeah, I hear you. And it just, I mean, you fit in. I mean, it's just part of the deal. All right, here, let's get this thing going here. I'm going to start the show here, and away we go. If I give you this or a short like that, that means we're getting close to break, because we do have, it is a 5-segment show. It's not like a typical podcast, because we're radio first, then podcast second. And so you'll know what I'm getting at. So if I give you a leading question and it's like this, forgive me because I do that, but just to give you a heads up. Okay.
Great.
Okay, cool. Here we go. Love doing this shit. So much fun. Welcome to this week's episode of what we call the Tom Matt Show. And I am the aforementioned Tom Matt. Hey, imagine that. Last week, Mitch Anderson was back. And Mitch is our premier producer. Mitch had some really good takes on technology, content creation. If you want to be a podcaster, if you want to write books, if you want to do these things, you need to find professionals that really know what the heck they're doing to help you do these things. Of course, you have to pay these people, but that's why they're professionals, because they get paid. Mitch is our guy. He makes us sound really good, and he went through some things, and he has helped a couple of our guests specifically with a tech setup with a new microphone and tech support for pretty nominal cost to make you sound great. And so with my regular guests, we try to do that because we want to give you the best content that we can. And so that's the name of that story today. Oh my gosh, you guys, you better sit back, kick the feet up, bookmark this podcast in case you're going to miss part of it, because you're going to get this is going to be some laughs. And we're going to have definitely my new best friend, Roland Lazenby, is with me. The storyteller, I'm calling this. Roland is an amazing guy who has an amazing story, who is a fantastic writer. And we're going to talk a lot about, and the whole purpose that when he got a hold of us was to talk about his book about Magic Johnson, Earvin Magic Johnson, Magic, which I never called Earvin Magic. And truth be told, Roland did not know. Somehow he, through all his research, his 5 years of writing this book, and we'll get into all this here in a second, you guys, but he did not know that I had such a deep history with Everett High School, Michigan State University, working at the university, moving to California, seeing Earvin in California many times. And so I read this book, which is 783 pages long. Let me give you these stats real quick, everybody. Then we'll get to Roland. 783 pages long. So it was a dense read, and it was a page turner. 13 pages of index, really small print, and 16 pages of bibliography, which he probably doesn't even know how many there were, because I mean, it's that well documented. It's that great of a book. And all of his books, I'm sure, are that way. Without much further ado, the storyteller, my new best buddy, guys, greatness, Roland Lazenby. Roland, welcome to the program. You ready to do this?
Oh, yes, Tom. And thank you for that wonderful introduction.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I didn't do your, there's a couple of things on your bio that I could read. I'm just going to do the really short one that came in the book, because I want you to go ahead and get going on this thing. Roland Lazenby is the author of definitive biographies of Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and Jerry West. Now, let me do a long pause there for a second, everybody. Those guys, I think you might know some of those guys, possibly, and among other books. He spent 3 decades interviewing NBA coaches, players, staff members, and other figures while writing about the league. Lives in Salem, Virginia. He is an awesome guy. And I mean, he's got just a profound history in athletics. And so without much further ado, let's do This Is Your Life, Roland. Let's rock this bad boy. Let's go. How are you?
I'm doing well, Tom. Thank you.
How's that injury doing? You nursing that thing okay?
Yeah, I had a great therapy session yesterday. I ruptured my quad, and I'm 71 years old. I'm an active 71, and that has helped me in the recovery. I have a great young physical therapist. He's really pushed me. I've worked hard to push myself. I want to get back. These are sort of devastating injuries, so it's been good to have the kind of effort I've had behind me.
Well, it's good to overcome stuff like that, because again, as we were talking about pre-production, it's this. I mean, you were a coach for a long time. When you have these injuries, they can really they can mess with your head big time, and depression can come in, or you can turn it around the other way, and it's all about perception. It's like, okay, how am I going to turn this into a win? And because you can sit there and you can whine and you can play loser if you want, or you can play winner and go about it that way. So
I think both things happen. And I think that, it really depends. Are you going to deal with that whining and attack things or not? And I think that is a decision that comes out of this, because injuries are huge setbacks. They're devastating. I don't care what your age.
Especially as we're growing older. And
right.
So that's the whole thing. And that's one thing I talk about on the show. And one reason I love being a personal trainer now in my refired career, along with all of these other things that we do. You got to get in people's heads, and you got to let them know the potentials are there. But you got to do the work. You got to do the heavy. I call it doing the big lift. If you can do the big lift, then you got a shot, because there's no guarantees to diddly crap. So talk about your family, please. Let the listeners know a little bit about yourself in the rest of this first segment. Would you please, Roland?
Yeah, I've been married 49 years to an
Congratulations.
absolutely beautiful woman in every way. And she is amazing. She's the most competent, smartest person I know. We have 3 kids. They're all fabulous. We have 3 grandkids. They're all fabulous. Of course, they're like everybody else. They're fabulous, but they're people. They have all kinds of stuff going on, good and bad, success, failure. We all have that stuff. I love them all to death. I I had great parents. I was raised in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Southwest Virginia in a little town. It was a great place to grow up. My old man was badly burned right out of the military 5 years before I was born, and he had gone from being a great athlete that shaped his life. He had skin grafts. He wasn't supposed to survive. He spent 2 years in a VA hospital, but being his son was a powerful and important thing to me. I had a great mom, 2 older brothers and sisters. We had our family issues, but you know what? It all worked out for me. I had terrible grades, but somehow managed, I had good boards and managed to get into Virginia Military Institute. VMI, of course, is known by quite a few people. George Marshall went there. It is a place that is really structured to present you with lots of difficulty. So that was an important thing for me. I served 3.5 years of barracks confinement at VMI because I was just a little strong-headed, and they had to get me on the right path. I was fortunate. I got to play a year of football there, 3 years of rugby. Those things sort of relieved all the barracks confinement. Anyway, I went on from there into teaching and coaching. Had the good fortune to coach the great Denver Broncos linebacker Ricky Hunley as an 8th grader in Petersburg, Virginia. Then I went to Blacksburg, Virginia, where Virginia Tech is. I became a varsity high school head coach at age 24 in wrestling. And I had an amazing group of young people, athletes. We ended up having a really good experience, and all of that was fantastic. And so my early life was really a storybook.
Wonderful. Awesome. With about a minute to go before we go to break, I'm going to carry this through, Roland. And let me reset this for the listeners. If you're just joining us, everybody, you're going to want to check this episode out for sure. Roland Lazenby is with us, the storyteller. Roland and I are going to do a lot more work together. Dave DeMarco is going to come together. We're going to put together this new thing. I'm not going to spill the beans just yet because I want to talk to the guys first and make sure we get it all dialed in. But good things are coming. We're going to talk primarily about Roland's new book, Magic. And it's just an amazing, amazing book. I mean, I read all 783 pages. I didn't read the 16 pages of bibliography, and I didn't read the 13 pages of index. But I'm telling you right now, having lived through so many of those years myself in my own life, it was like all these names and all these people and all of these, everything that was coming together. And when Roland and I did our pre-show call, he was like, I wish I would have met you before. It's like, we got more things, more projects coming with all this, because Earvin Johnson is he's just an amazing guy. And we're going to talk a lot about the book here and that whole putting it all together. Again, the storyteller, Roland Lazenby. You're listening to the Tom Matt Show. That's it, bro. Man, it's that easy.
That is great. That's a great in and out.
It's that easy. Okay, I got to read for each segment until the last segment. The last segment is where I'll throw it to you for plug, Roland. If you want to plug your email, your books, the publisher, all of your books, anything you want to that'll be in the fifth segment, but I'll prep you on that before we get there. So let me do this real quick. It's snowing like a bad madman here today.
I bet. And I couldn't believe I was so happy last night that Michigan won. I know you probably aren't, but I had two stories to do, and I just looked at it. I said, Michigan's going to kill them. And my publisher was waiting because one of the stories was going to be on Washington if they won. I
Yeah.
just said, I don't think they're going to get it done. I just don't think they're physical enough. They
I,
played well, but they just
yeah.
weren't
Well, I said
physical.
early on, I said, after watching and being around, football, college Division I football for as long as I have, I said these guys could win it all. They're that talented. They have when you have all the pieces, and frankly, I'm glad because I'm not, I didn't want. Of course, I'm glad for the Big Ten, but I want to see Harbaugh gone, and this will help him. This will help him get back on that banana peel back into the NFL. Plus, all of his players get out of here. The new guy we got at Michigan State seems like he's doing a good job, but we got a lot of ground to catch up. I mean, a lot, and so
When you fall off the horse like that, it is a lot of work to get
tough.
back on.
You know who's going to have a tough time is Ohio State. Ohio State's in trouble. They are, and we're recording this right now, and you guys, let me tell you, they don't like losing. They don't like losing several years in a row to Michigan. They don't like that's unacceptable to them. But guess what? It's the way it goes now with NIL and all of that. Let's get going here. I'll roll on and we'll do this whole thing. How's your time, by the way? You good?
Me,
Yeah.
I'm great.
Okay, good. Okay. I like to say, I don't know if you have an appointment later today or whatever, and it's just like, hey, we're running out of time. It's like, shit, we got another segment to do. Here we go.
I do, but it's not till 3:30.
Okay,
That's
cool, cool. Well, you and I we'll probably talk after too, for sure. I guarantee it.
right.
Here we go. Second segment of the Tom Matt Show is sponsored by Craig Styles and Ameriprise Financial. Thank goodness for our sponsors. They help us grow our platform and all of the outreach that we're doing. We've got a new virtual assistant who's doing amazing work. If you've been missing out on any of our content on Instagram or Facebook or any of those, go check it out. She's doing a great job. But Craig Styles is he was the first sponsor we ever had, and he is the man. And we have, and again, full disclosure, everybody, we have all of our retirement zone savings with Craig because I don't want to think about this stuff. I want to do what we do. I got a million things going on. It's all good. The retirement zone is happening. It's rocking, and we're doing good things. I'm not a finance guy. Sandy handles all that stuff, but we just handed it over to Craig, and away he goes with the right financial advisor, Craig Styles. He can help you plan for the life you want today and well in the future, like he's doing with us. Here's some numbers coming at you. 1-800-528-1355, 517-483-4893. Craig.styles@ampf.com is his email. Offices are located at 2400 Lake Lansing Road. Suite B is in Brilliant or B-ism, Lansing, Michigan. Remember, with the right financial advisor, life can be brilliant, and that's the truth. Here are some stations that have carried us in the past. Broadcast radio is really goofy. WGHN 92.1 FM in Grand Haven, Michigan was the first station to ever carry us on broadcast radio, and I will continue to say thank you to them. WJIM 1240 AM in Lansing is the flagship of the Michigan Talk Network, where we're carried on multiple stations all over the Midwest. WJRW 1340 AM in Grand Rapids carried us for a long time. WKLQ 1490 AM in Muskegon, Whitehall. WYPV FM 94.5 in Mackinac City, way up north. And there's more stations in the Michigan Talk Network that are carrying us in the UP. Send us a note if you want me to read your call letters. And of course, our PBS affiliate at the Big Green Machine, Michigan State University, WKAR AM 870 News Talk, blasting it all the way to the Lakeshore, East Lansing, 102.3 FM on the simulcast. And thank Craig again, Craig Styles, for creating Necessary Analytics, where we are making light of weighted decisions. He developed his proprietary algorithm before algorithm was a cool word. And that's the way Craig is. And we'll be talking to Craig here real soon. And lastly, I want to plug the Michigan Talk Network and Steve and Ivy Gruber. Steve, you're the bomb. You're a star. Ivy, you're a bigger star. And thank you so much, you guys, for carrying us on your platform. We appreciate you very much. And we're going to continue to bring guests like we have today. The storyteller, Roland Lazenby, is with me. He wrote the definitive book on Earvin Johnson. I read the whole book. It is amazing. Here's a line from the paperwork that I got with the book. For the very first time, the Johnson family ancestry mapped from a North Carolina plantation to present day. That was really interesting as well. Okay, Roland, let's talk about this book. I mean, you told me it took you 5 years to get this project done. I can't even imagine working on with that many pages of bibliography and all your sources. I mean, let's start at the beginning. Why?
Well, I didn't plan on 5 years, but Earvin Johnson has a very, very big, very, very complex, very, very amazing life. And there was so much. No one has ever gone in depth on the Lansing experience the way I did. The first half of the book is Lansing in so many ways. That is the amazing part of the Earvin Johnson story. And it's where we see who he is.
The whole thing where and I'm telling you guys, having gone to school with Earvin at Everett High School for the 3 years that he was at Everett High School, knowing of him when he went to Dwight Rich Junior High and I went to Walter French with Jay Vincent and several other giant athletes. I mean, you captured the temperature of those times in the mid 70s because we graduated in 1977. You really nailed it. I mean, I kept looking for little I swear to God, I was looking for little holes in the book. I couldn't find any. The only one is what I told you about, and it was such a small hole. It's like, well, no one would know that. But yeah, I mean, all the documentation, the people you talk to, let's I want to get your impression on Dale Beard.
Oh, I just don't think that Earvin Johnson could have had a better person step in off that junior varsity and find his way into the rotation on that Everett team that ultimately won the state championship. I don't think, and I know Lansing has a lot of impressive sons. I don't think there are many, if any, more impressive as a human being than Dale. I
Dale's
think Dale Beard was fantastic in the interviews, and everywhere I've gone, I've run into his many admirers.
They're all solid. I mean, he is such a good guy. Another guy that you had a lot of depth with, of course, with his parents and Dr. Tucker. I mean, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with like these? I guess we could start with the Lansing stuff and George Fox. I mean, George Fox was the coach at Everett High School. He was a great teacher. He was a great coach. Start with his and his contribution to your book and what you felt how he nurtured Earvin in those really turbulent times because those absolutely were rough, racially diverse times.
Well, I did better than 50 interviews with George Fox. One of the one of the really impressive things I've been able to do in my journalism career because I really wanted to understand everything. George was in his 80s. Part of it was just going through the various things, just making sure memories were what they were, and that if there was a problem, George was going to say, "I don't remember that too well." But and to have Pat Holland, just a prince of a man, and I'm not just saying this. These guys are great. Pat Holland and Dale Beard have been close, but just getting everybody to give me everything they had. Dr. Charles Tucker, and I really wanted, it was almost like an archaeology project. I wanted to go over all the little shards of emotion, all the little pieces of details, because there was a lot of conflict in there. Lansing's no different than so many American communities. There's so much misunderstanding And it is prevalent today. There's so much misunderstanding because of our racial history. But what I was amazed at early on, Lansing was this place that really wanted to empower Black males, and they did it in ways that were impressive for that era. They're impressive today.
I think that might have transferred over. I'm going to carry this through, Roland, because we're going to come up on break here. Let me reset this, everybody. The storyteller's with us. Roland Lazenby is our guest today, talking about his book, Magic. I do believe, and we can come back and talk about this when we come out of break, carry this thread through, that Michigan State with Duffy Doherty and the way he carried things through in the 60s really set the image for this mid-Michigan area. And a lot of people don't remember that. And we'll talk about that when we come back. Again, resetting this, the storyteller. Roland Lazenby's with me, talking about Earvin Johnson, his book, Magic. It's phenomenal. This is the Tom Mann Show. So many things we could talk about. So many things.
And I'll get better at closing it out. I'm sorry I get
No,
going
no, no, you're
sometimes.
good. No, you're fine. That's why it's nice that we do the no, you're totally fine. It's nice that we have the video now, because for the longest time I didn't do video till this past year. And so when I'm doing these remote interviews like this, you'd have to kind of jump in, and I got better at not giving leading questions on that whole thing. But let me do this read, and we will rock on. There's Jamie. There it is. Here we go. The third segment of the Tom Mann Show is sponsored by our new sponsor, Jamie White of White Law PLLC, big time Spartan. Guy's greatness. You want to catch his first interview that I did with him? I cut up his excerpt and put a lot of energy into that because it's so good. It's so well done. And I'm talking about Jamie's business and his whole philosophy on life. Tremendous. The guy's amazing. And his whole staff over there is great. White Law PLLC, where justice meets compassion. And that's the truth. That is the truth. So happy to have Jamie with us as a sponsor now. White Law is your advocate in times of need. They are here to listen, support, and fight for what you deserve. And that's why we want him on our show, because he's got the proven track record. You can connect with all of our sponsors at our homepage, tommattshow.com, at the bottom. But you can also do it this way. You can visit White Law for a free consultation at whitelawpllc.com, or call, I'll give you this number twice, everybody, 517-777-9785. And also remember that Jamie sponsors the Mad Dog Minutes that we do, our little sports clips, our little video clips we do with David DeMarco as he records those, and I produce those things up, and it's all good in the hood. And the special project that we got coming up here, I'll tease you guys with this down the road, but let me tell you, having a Roland Lazenby and a David DeMarco and me to kind of keep these two guys in the lanes and keep us on time is going to be something special. And that's all I'm going to say about that at the moment. All right, back to the episode. The storyteller, Roland Lazenby, talking about his book, Magic. Tremendous book. Huge, 783 pages long. Roland, we left off with you talking about several of the people that we know jointly, and the whole first half of your book is so in depth with Lansing. And I said that, and you made the reference that the racial diversity that was occurring at those times in the 70s, it was tough time. I mean, we went through it. My wife and I, we were at that school. We went to that school. We saw the busing. We were part of it. We were part of all of it. And we weren't happy about it. I mean, it was not something, it wasn't just a black thing. It was not just a white thing. It was just a cultural thing. And so, but it was mandated by the federal government to do this desegregation. So they did this desegregation, and voila, it made things better. But Roland, I started saying that Mid-Michigan has been always on the cutting edge of supporting black athletes because I believe because of Duffy Doherty's forward thinking back in the 60s. Do you agree with that?
Oh, there's no question of it. And when you look, there are certain schools that have done things. First, I have to say that black athletes in Catholic schools. I'm talking about in the early part of the 20th century, the 1900s, the early 1900s. You started to see some things there, but that was limited. When you got into the 50s and 60s, it was Penn State and Michigan State moving in and embracing, doesn't matter what your skin color was, they wanted the best athletes, the best people, and that was the way it proceeded. And so many good things that began to happen in those communities happened because of that.
And we are very grateful for that because it's made our society better. And so, for you younger folks that are out there and you see all of the racial disparities that are going on, the polarization that's going on in our world today, you need to step back and you need to read a book like The Magic Book and see what was going on, you know, 40, 50 years ago. I mean, because I can't believe I'm saying this, if I'm dating myself, but that's a fact. And it's like, so don't think that this is a new occurrence. This has been going on for quite some time. And let's continue to make progress. Let's continue to support everyone, no matter what the skin color. Who cares? I mean, it makes no difference. It's like Dale Beer's been on my show several times. I know all those guys. We were all tight. If you were an athlete in high school, Roland, you know this because you're a college coach, a high school coach, you player. I mean, if you're an athlete, you got along. I mean, you got along. Now you talked about I was going to pivot into the family stuff with Earvin and his building that foundation of the Lansing part of the book with his mom and dad and his siblings. Let's talk first about his mom and dad and that strong, strong faith that Mrs. Johnson brought, Mr. Johnson brought. I mean, but it was an interesting thing. Can you talk about that, please?
Right. And you were saying great things about skin color doesn't matter. It's not black that's the enemy or white that's the enemy. It's misunderstanding that is the enemy. And America has a very complex racial story. And that's the only point to all of that. And it takes time to gain that understanding. And of course, that was the kind of thing that began happening in Lansing. It's fascinating. And a big part of that, the last thing, as Dr. Charles Tucker, who's another figure that gave me many interviews for this book, as he explained, back then, it didn't matter if you were black or white. Nobody wanted to be uprooted and bused to another school. At the time, that was the only way to really start to get the races together so they could be classmates, teammates, and begin to work it out. And part of this is that story. And that's what began to happen in Lansing. Now, what was such an important part of that? Earvin Johnson and his siblings did not want to go to Everett High School. They did not want to leave their neighborhoods. And their parents they were by the book people, an incredible family. And they heard their children and they said, I'm sorry, if the city schools say you must go, you must go.
And you got to applaud him for that because for the listeners that don't know the Lansing community, Earvin Johnson's home, his original home when he was a kid, was about 4 blocks from Sexton High School. I mean, it was definitely walking distance, and they were a powerhouse in the '60s. So they're growing up as kids. We're all growing up as Sexton was the spot, especially for basketball, and that really rocked everybody. And the person that took it the hardest, and I didn't really know this because Larry Johnson's 2 years older than me, and I was glad to read in the book all of the details you had about Larry and his struggles at Everett High School. I know Larry very well, and I got to know him post high school, being an adult. Please talk about a little bit. We've got a couple minutes to go before we go to break here. Talk about Larry's contribution to Irvin's life and him and his contribution to the family.
Well, he was the older brother, a little more than 2 years older than Earvin. Earvin was taller, but they went at each other in basketball. And the great Tex Winter, my dear friend, would always tell me, he said, you want to know a great player, you look at those skills. When they have that skill set, you can tell they spent hours and hours and hours perfecting that skill set. And that was Larry and Earvin. Another the Main Street School court over there was their ground, man. And they went at it. Sometimes Earvin would play himself full court one-on-one, but usually it was Earvin and Larry having at it.
Yeah, that's the truth. And that's the fact that Main Street School, which is right around the corner from Earvin's house, his parents' original home, was something special. And I'm going to carry this through, Roland. We'll pick up the thread of the parenting, and then we'll just, and don't worry, everybody. I know you want me to get to the Michigan State stuff, and you want us to get to the Lakers stuff and all of that, and the post and all of that. This show could go for 3 hours easily. And so just bear with me here, because we want to promote the book, and I really want to encourage everybody to go get this book, because it's going to really change the way you see things, because it ain't all roses and donuts for Earvin. I mean, yeah, he had a lot of success, but let me tell you something. And it's pretty well known that there's been some things that occurred in his life, but there was a lot that led into his behaviors that brought him down. So the guy recovered. He did his thing. We'll talk more about this when we come back, listening to Roland Lazenby, the storyteller, talking about his book, Magic, Story of Earvin Johnson. You're listening to Tom Match Show. There's no doubt that we could carry this through and carry it through and carry it through.
You're a wise man. It's time to move to basketball.
Yeah, let's go to basketball, and let's get in this. I got a read to do for another sponsor, and then we will cruise on. The fourth segment of the Tom Matz Show is sponsored by Brock. And again, full disclosure, Brock Fletcher, the selling team of Keller Williams, where we sold Big House Holt and we bought Little House Lansing. Thank you to Mike Dedman. How you doing, Mikey? I mean, it's incredible people. There's so many good people in the mid-Michigan area. It's a testament. And that's why we love calling Lansing, Michigan, the refinement zone, because the refinement zone, which we started here, it started right here in mid-Michigan. And I like to say that Lansing is the home of the refinement zone. Brock Fletcher is the guy you can trust. Again, I told you about full disclosure. A couple of numbers coming at you here. 517-853-6408. Or the super secret, non-super secret number so much anymore, 517-303-3262 is Brock's cell phone. Text him. Tell him you heard it on Tommy's show. When you say Tommy, he knows it came from radio, because all my radio buddies call me Tommy. That's totally cool. It's fine. But they have an awesome team over there. And the thing about Brock, Mike, and the whole crew and the whole team over there, and the support that he gives to the university, and all of our sponsors are big time MSU sponsors and supporters, you got to go with the team. I mean, he is a team guy. They start spending money on marketing, like sponsoring our program, way before they ever get your listing. And they want to provide that service for you so that you can maximize your return on investment, and they will help you do that. He will help you educate. Now, again, go back to our website, tommattshow.com, and find all of those episodes, the reality of real estate, financial fitness, and when I create the law dog, or whatever I'm going to call Jamie's section on the website for all of our categories, you can get, it's all free. Go check out the website, find different topics. We try to do different topics so that you can get your questions answered quickly. You can listen to these guys. They're straight up. They're the best. Love them so much. Again, Brock Fletcher at the selling team of Keller Williams Realty. Trust is our middle name. Love all of our sponsors. I want to thank all of them so much for what they do for us. It's just incredible. They believe in us, and it validates what we're doing. That's why we can bring a guest, an awesome guy like Roland Lazenby on, the storyteller, talking about Magic, his new book, Magic, Story of Earvin Johnson, all 783 pages of it. And I read them all. And I'm telling you, it was a page turner. I may read that book again. I mean, Roland's going to be kind enough to give me a few copies. If you're on the Tom speed dial, you're probably going to get a call. We'll probably hook you up because everybody needs to read this. If you're living in Lansing, Michigan, and I know several people that I need to get this book to, absolutely would be just thrilled to read this, and you will as well. So let's get into some basketball here. Post high school, we've talked a lot about Lansing. We talked about the parenting. We talked about Larry a little bit. Dale, Dale Beard's a great friend. Let's continue on with Michigan State, and then we'll move into the Lakers. But the research on the Michigan State stuff, because Earvin was a man child in junior high. I mean, at Dwight Rich, and so the craziest thing, and I don't know if I told you this or not, but we were all shocked because we were all friends with Earvin back in those days, of course, because we were all athletes. But when Earvin came back from his freshman, I guess, orientation or whatever it was at Michigan State back in '78, his hair was gone. He had his big afro was gone. We were shocked. It was like, what? Did you know that?
You know, it happened. And all the detail I have in this story, and I wrote a lot about the afro. Dale
Yes, you
Beard
did.
talked about how hard they had to really sort of put caps over their hair. They take it off and it would pop out into these glorious afro halos. And that was the main thing then. And I was so busy trying to get down the dynamic of Judd and Earvin, because that was quite a clash that people don't realize. Um, and so I just sort of let the hair slip by the wayside. And you can imagine, as detailed as my book is, that drives me crazy, Tom.
Hate to do it to you, but let me tell you, Dale and Earvin had matching. And for those of you who don't know and haven't seen these pictures, but Dale and Earvin had matching giant afros. We're talking giant afros. These things were perfect. And so when he came back, and then that whole thing at Michigan State, talk about the because the whole thing about going into college, we all thought, all of the students and the athletes at Everett High School, we all of us 100% believed he was going to University of Michigan.
And Irvin wanted to go to Michigan and later UCLA, anywhere but Michigan State. And he knew that his father, Earvin Sr., wanted him to stay in Lansing and go to Michigan State. And he did not want to do it. He wanted to step out. He didn't trust Judd Heathcote, but everybody was promising him things about handling the ball and that stuff. It was really hard at that time for him to trust who was going to stick him doing what. But his father would not tell him, I want you to go to Lansing. And it dragged out and it dragged out. And finally, Earvin said, and as Charles Tucker said, he didn't do what he wanted to do, but he knew what he was going to do, and that was to honor his father. And the irony to me was Earvin became his own man, not by going against his father, but by honoring his father. And when you think, I'm a father, I wish I could say I had the kind of restraint that Earvin Sr. displayed with young Magic. But I just found it very admirable that he let Earvin have that control. And that was a maturing thing for young Earvin.
It absolutely was, and it was just shocking to all of us, and it changed everything about the Mid Michigan area, and it worked out. And Mr. Johnson, Earvin Johnson Sr., who was a hard working guy, working at over at Fisher Body and then doing his side businesses, and Earvin doing the side businesses with them. They worked so hard, and they were just so. I mean, their faith, Mrs. Johnson's faith, and the thing I didn't realize, Roland Lazenby is our guest today, everybody, author of Magic, calling this one the storyteller. I didn't realize that when Mrs. Johnson had changed her religious beliefs, that she couldn't go to games on Saturdays. She just that was her faith day, and she stuck by that, right? I mean, that was interesting.
Oh, she is a person of deep, deep faith. And that was one of the things I wanted to trace. I wanted to trace that missionary Baptist faith all the way back through her family into North Carolina. I was able to do that. And so, because it was important, it resided in the hearts of the women of her family, the Porters. And it was an amazing thing. And her decision to switch to Seventh day Adventist was no small thing. It created chaos.
Talk about, and we're going to jump forward here a little bit here because we're going to come up on break here, and I want to make sure I get enough basketball stuff in here. But let's start the thread of talking about the year, the 1979, when we won the national championship, and here we go with we, but I'm a Spartan, and the Larry Bird, that whole dynamic. Would you talk about that? We'll start that, and we can finish that thread and then jump into Lakers stuff here when we come back. But please talk about that a little bit. That final year.
When George Fox was spurring Earvin along, he said, you know, Earvin, somewhere in America, there's a 6'9" kid out there who's working just as hard as you are. And you're going to encounter him. And Earvin later, when he encountered Larry Bird, he got a hold of George Fox and said, once I met Larry, then I realized what you were talking about. And here were these two relatively 6'9" guys, mirror images in a lot of ways, in the way they prize certain things about basketball. Great competitors. I just thought that was a beautiful thing.
And back then, see, we don't have, and people nowadays, they don't remember, they don't know that back then we didn't have the media coverage. You didn't have all of the social impact with social media and all the newspaper. I mean, these games weren't even on TV, right, Roland?
Right. When Michigan State went down to play Carmichael Auditorium to play UNC, you know, that was one of the biggest things going. Could you imagine a game like that today not being televised? They didn't even televise it back in Lansing. It was like, whoa. And it's just how different it was as basketball was emerging as a major American game.
It was. And when we come back, we're going to do the Laker things, you guys, and we'll get into Earvin's trials and tribulations and the Dr. Bus thing and all of that, because that's another big part of the book. This is such a high altitude interview, everybody. There's absolutely no way I can do it justice. So we're doing a high altitude kind of quick run through. Roland, guarantee it, he's going to be back. We absolutely have already started talking about this. And because he's such a cool guy and I love his work so much, the storyteller. Roland Lazenby, my new best friend, is with us today. You're listening to the Tom Match Show. Okay, this is where we do plug. I'm going to just plug my website real quick, and then you go ahead and just take it, and let's just roll right into. I'll throw you the Laker, right out of the getting drafted, getting all that money and all that stuff and the Jerry Buss, wherever you want to go with this, because it's all fascinating. And if we don't get into the HIV stuff this time, so what? I mean, it's still great. And it's still, I mean, we can touch on that, but wherever you want to go with it, whatever you think is important for the listeners on this first one, let's just do whatever you feel. Okay.
Sure. I'll try to move quickly throughout points.
Okay, cool. Great. Perfect. Here we go. I want you guys all to remember to connect with us. Please go to our website, tommattshow.com. That's where you have all of the video footage. You have all of the podcast, the audio stuff everything is there. Our blogs are there, everything. We've been building that website now for 13, 14 years, and it gets changed every week. We update it every week, and it's a joy to have, and it's there for you. It's there for our sponsors, for anybody that's looking to find any of our old content. Please go there. Roland, how would you like people to connect with you? And then we can get back into this fantastic story about your book, Magic. How would you like people to connect with you? Where can they find the book? Everything. Please go right ahead.
For me, it's probably Twitter at Lazenby. Lazenby is my handle on Twitter. The book is 800 pages. It has a $40 cover price. And when it first came out, those Amazon discounts and those bookstore discounts don't kick in. It's like it has to progress. And then when they kick in, that's the perfect time to buy the book. And I will tell you that finally, as Christmas neared, here come the discounts. And so instead of a $40 first edition hardcover, the discounts are now half. It's a $20
Oh,
first edition hardcover. And it's not like they print a million of these things, because book publishing's different. There are only 22,500. I probably shouldn't even be saying that, but the first editions are only 22,000 copies. That's rare. And so if you want that, you can find them just about everywhere. All books are sold. The discounts are now there. I particularly like the Audible version, the audio book. It's 30 hours of listening. Fortunately, I only read a small part of it. J.D. Jackson, this guy that was born to read audiobooks, Macmillan, my publisher, hired him. I just can't believe how great he sounds.
this book, when I opened up the box, you guys, this is God's honest truth. I was shocked. I mean, I looked at this book because I really didn't know what to expect. We get requests like this quite often. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a $40 hardcover, just awesome book. And then I started to read it, and it's like, that was my whole project while we were in Wisconsin the last time, you guys. I was going to get this done, absolutely 100% done, so that when I talk to Roland and I could, me with my integrity, I want to be able to tell all of our listeners and fans of the show, I read the whole book. The book is awesome. You'll love it. Go get it. Let's do that. All right, let's talk about Laker time. You take it. I'm going to let you roll with this thing. We got this last segment to go, and there's a lot to that as well. This is a very complicated man and a great guy. Start wherever you want to start there, Mr.
I'm going to start
Storyteller.
quickly with Michigan State. Judd Heathcote was a fundamental guy, as Charles Tucker said, and Charles Tucker would always take the coach's side. He would never get in the middle of things, but he would just steer Earvin along. But Judd Heathcote hated the idea that Earvin was going to pass the ball off the dribble. Those beautiful no-look passes, the ball's coming off the dribble, pushing it left, pushing it right, wherever. But the whole point was that's what Earvin was born to do. That was part of the revolution he was bringing to basketball. They butted heads like crazy, to the point that Earvin walked out of practice as a freshman and wasn't coming back. Charles Tucker didn't say a word to Earvin. He just went to Earvin Sr. and said, Earvin's left practice. He's not coming back, he says. And the next day, Earvin was back in practice because his dad said, you get back in there. But the point was, Earvin and Judd Heathcote battled over this back and forth. And they had this magnificent freshman season, and then boom, that sophomore season, a lot of trouble, but they worked it out in time to win the national championship. Now on to the Lakers. Jerry Buss saw Earvin in that national championship, and he was secretly trying to buy two NBA teams at once, the Pacers in Indiana and the Lakers. And he was hoping, and he ended up moving his business partners, because suddenly he got both teams, and he couldn't do that. And so they hid it. And so Jerry Buss was controlling the Pacers. He took charge of the building. His business partner, Frank Mariani, took a piece, and one of his business associates took the main piece of the Pacers. And Jerry Buss was operating the Lakers and the Pacers out of a strip mall in LA. And the league, it took the league a couple of years to find out about it. They had all kinds of hullabaloo raising hell. Of course, the Boston Globe did the investigation that revealed it. But the whole point was, it was that kind of freewheeling time in 1979 when Earvin went to the Lakers, and suddenly the team was bought by Playboy. Earvin was already on his way to becoming a playboy as the star at Michigan State, but the size of the playing field in Los Angeles was a different thing. I have one other thing I want to say, Tom, and thank you for letting me run on about these things. But when you look at Earvin, he's really a curious study. There's not a guy that probably had more emotional intelligence, more empathy, more charm, more ability to be inclusive. He would jump on the phone in high school and call all of his teammates, even the lowliest guys on the JV, about summer stuff. But the point in all this was he also had this gigantic ego. He always declared himself this great winner his whole life. He didn't talk about all the moments where he would melt down in the playoffs for Everett and the hard lessons he had to learn. But it's funny, all these wonderful characteristics of Earvin were on full display, but so was this raging ego that led him into trouble with all I mean, it's just hard to describe the many women in and around the Lakers, not just Earvin. But this all led him down a path that was so difficult for his family, for his mother, his wife, HIV positive. It looked like he had utterly destroyed his life.
It's interesting because you really go into depth with the Jerry Buss buying the team and Jack Can't Cook and his tight-fisted. I mean, back then, the NBA was not even close. I mean, talk about that a little bit because the whole culture was still kind of backwoods sort of thing. We got about 4 minutes to go before we got to wrap this thing, but Earvin and Larry Bird, they changed the whole dynamic of the NBA, and to this day, it's in its next evolution. But that at that point, those guys, they changed everything. They made Michael Jordan what he is.
In 1979, the year before Earvin arrived for the 79-80 season, regular season TV ratings for the NBA dropped 26%. It was falling off the edge of the media earth. And here comes Earvin and Larry. It wasn't over immediately. Teams were losing millions of dollars. And there were all kinds of problems. But as Jim Jones pointed out to us, Larry and Magic brought a much more interesting style of play to the NBA, not only with how they played, but with how hard they played. And when David Stern came in, David was working as a lawyer and he was in charge of the business and media stuff. When he saw that whole thing, and by the 84, Larry and Magic were going at each other in the NBA finals, and David Stern had become the commissioner, and basketball was on its way.
All right, let's take a close here because I got to get a takeaway from you. I need about a minute and a half takeaway from you on this. And we will absolutely, I promise you, all the listeners out there, the viewers of the video, I promise you that Roland's coming back. We're going to talk more about this. We barely scratched the surface of all of this. Love this book so much, but I want to really encourage everyone to go out and get this book. But what would be your takeaway from our first visit here to my new best friend, Roland? What would be your takeaway?
Me?
Yeah.
Uh, well, my takeaway is I absolutely love this show, and I absolutely love being able to engage with everything you bring from the Lansing community, from that era. I wrote this book because I was a 24-year-old varsity head coach in that era. I have a great love for those things that happened for me. And I just want to tell you, to engage this way is what I've been dying to do since I wrote the book. I had all of these sessions. I spent 5 years of my life talking with George Fox and Pat Holland and Dale Beard and Charles Tucker and all these different people in the community. And I am absolutely astounded by Lansing. and all the things that happened there. And if you think about it, those things that happened there, they're not just about Lansing. They are about the sport of basketball and how it grew.
You nailed it. We're going to get you back very, very soon. We'll continue this whole conversation. If our show fits your business or group's mission, everybody, we want to be of service to you through our guests like Roland Lazenby. Thank you so much, Roland. This was so much fun. I enjoyed it so much. And I appreciate your time so much. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you, Tom.
My pleasure. Again, thank you to Roland, Sandy, Craig, Brock, all of our students that have worked with us. Always remember, before you can share love with others, you must love yourself first. That's what we close the show with every week. Go out and ignite your life. You know that the Tom Matt Show is a production of Boomers Rock Media. And lastly, I want to say thank you so much to Mitch Anderson, the producer, who does it all. Tom Matt Show is a production of Boomers Rock Media. We want to bring your story to life. Thank you so much for listening. We are out. We got so much more to talk about. Okay, so I'm thinking with David, we could go in a couple different directions. You and I could continue the same conversation about Lansing and sports and Lansing and your book and promote that. And that maybe that's going to be part of our little our conference with Dave, the three guys talking sports, is I split it in half. I need your input on that because whatever you think is good, we could do historical stuff. I think that we could start doing a whole freaking show all the time with like regularly talking about three guys talking sports, because between you two guys and me driving, because I know Dave so well and you and I are going to get to know each other so well. I mean, it's such a value add to people. People die for this kind of stuff and it's all good. We don't do hit jobs. We want to do positive radio. We want to do positive video. We want to do the good story and shit, man. We didn't even get a chance to talk about any of the downside with Earvin but you gotta cut it somewhere. I mean, it's only an hour long, right? I mean, so whatever
Oh,
you think.
I'm amazed at what we got covered today, Tom.
Well, I tried. I mean, I'd like to think,
Yes, you did.
you
That's
know,
amazing.
thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to doing more of this stuff. So depending on how your schedule is going, I want you to get better with that leg too.
Yeah.
Um,
I will say this. I have an answer. I think what happened in Lansing in the late 1970s, mid to late 1970s, saved basketball. It reshaped the sports world. And that's not a reach. And there are a lot of people that played a role in this. There's Dr. Matt Prophet, the war hero who gets a PhD and becomes deputy superintendent and then superintendent of schools. There are all these figures. There's Clayton Kowalk and his great vision of things, but there are all these other people in the community, including the students. This was a real challenge. But out of that grew this. I mean, what happened? Basketball helped. It didn't solve everything. That's not what happens, but it brought people together. And I think you could probably do that however often you want to do it. We can look at certain pieces of the puzzle of why Lansing is so important to the basketball world.
I think that's a great idea. I love that whole concept, and I'm totally down with it because we've got the platform here, and we set it all up, and I love doing the content creation and cutting up. When you see this and you hear it, that's when you're going to really start to click with your author brain and where we want to go with this, because I'll go wherever you guys want to go with this whole thing. And so it's like, let's just bring it to light. I've always said that's why I like saying that the retirement zone was born in Lansing, Michigan, because it was. I mean, it's just people need to understand. See, Lansing is going through we've been kind of the double stepchild in Michigan, because you got Detroit, you got Grand Rapids, and then there's other communities in the state. So we're sort of a state capital. We got a lot of good things going on, but there's still a tremendous amount of growth. And when I tell students, I said you might want to think about staying in Lansing because cost of living is very reasonable here and it's growing. And so we drive around this town, Sandy and I do, and we look at some of the things. I mean, it's pretty incredible what's been happening, but it's been very slow. And needs
There's
to
no
all
question American cities and towns are struggling.
yes.
And I think one of the things, just real quickly, they have to look to their history. And it begins by building that pride. It's not something that any one person did alone. It's not Magic Johnson. It's not this guy. It's all these different things. And I have to say, that's what fits you and Dave perfectly because you have these other memories. It's not like I have to be the guy, I'm an outsider. I don't have to be the guy saying everything. I can point out what I see, and that's a value. And I see Lansing as a hell of a place, having a hell of a history. Uh, I didn't even know that Malcolm X was raised in Lansing. But the
Stevie
whole
Wonder
point,
went to the school for the blind here.
and I will tell you that with what you guys have, and then wherever we just want to point it out, it's sort of a celebrate Lansing. Come on, give the place a break.
Yep.
Yes, there are problems. You can see them everywhere. But guess what? That's life in these United States. That's life everywhere in the world. But what you have to do is celebrate your strengths, acknowledge your weaknesses, and get the hell on down the bunny trail.
Well, there's a couple of the guys that I'm going to give the book to. One is Tim Damon. His son lives next door to us. I've known Tim for 30 years. He's the president of the Lansing Regional Chamber of Commerce. He's a very, very good guy. He's a Michigan State guy. He loves this kind of stuff. I'm going to give him one of the books when I get a book, and he's been on the show a few times. And so, yeah, we're all about promoting the good and taking it to that next level, whatever that is. And like a Brock Fletcher, who our sponsors are all Spartans. Everybody around here, Michigan State's had so much darkness, and I've been with the university for 25 years, and it's like I'm tired of this bullshit. I'm tired of this. It's time to get through all of this. We got a new president. We got the guy from North Carolina. I think he's going to be great. He's a sports guy. He was a former athletic trainer. So, I mean, University of North Carolina, they really messed up losing that guy. But hey, their loss, our win. And so, hey, we'll take it. But in these polarized times, a lot of times if you don't check the right boxes, unfortunately to say that, then you get a lot of pressure. You know what? Nobody tells us what to do, Roland, because we own our own copyright.
And I will tell you, it's not like everybody's wrong or these people are right. These are wrong. It is, like I said, the enemy is misunderstanding. It's
Yeah.
not either side.
It's
And
it's totally a communication thing because if we don't have good communication, then we people buy into the easy way of watching their one channel and we get this very, very biased beliefs and people don't read anymore. So that's the thing about having an 800-page book. It's like, well, how many people are going to read this book? It has to be so damn good that people tear it up. And that's why we need to promote this because reading is so like the old commercial, Roland. Reading is fundamental.
that's why I promote the audiobook. And my Michael Jordan book, it's 700 pages. It has sold and sold and sold. It's in 21 languages. Earvin's already in 8 languages. So the story of Lansing is in 8 languages already. And it just came out in October. So we probably need to look at Lansing the global example. Well, there are all kinds of things we can do, and we don't have to make Lansing sound like the greatest place in the world. It is the thing about Lansing is it's like every other community. It's got problems, but it's got people who are honest enough to stand up and deal with them the best way they can. And when you look at what was going on in the American North, you had a refugee population. That's why I wanted to explain the Great Migration, because suddenly all these people who've been chased out of the South by violence and just terrible situations, they arrive in the North And that's a big impact. That story was never reported at the time.
Yeah.
And all of these cities across the north, they were dealing with a refugee population. Fortunately, they you know they had open arms. It wasn't pleasant. They didn't like it. There was a lot of conflict because of it. But we see all over the world wherever refugee populations, wherever they are, wherever they go, you're going to have the shit happen.
Right.
I mean, that's human nature.
Yep.
And let's just, the facts give Lansing an opportunity to be proud. It's not like everything was perfect. What is? But Lansing did things that made a difference, that changed a lot of things globally. And I
Yep.
think it's important to recognize that.
Where are you at on your reading list right now? Because I've written 4 books. 2 of them are really small. 2 of them are pretty decent. But my first one, my Maximize Your Quality of Life book, seems to be getting like younger people are reading this again. They're getting back to me, and it's like they like where this whole thing that took me a while to kind of get. That was my first thing. I'd like to send you a copy if you've got room on your reading list because
Send it. I tell you what I have going on right now. I have 3 movie deals. I've been hired. I can't say this publicly.
well
We're
we're
not.
recording still, so be careful.
All right. Well, I've been hired by Mandalay and Skydance, who did Last Dance and Air, and I'm doing a project for them. I've been hired by a Canadian film company. We're doing a LeBron documentary, and I am part of. I'm working on another Kobe Bryant project dealing with the whole story of his rap music career and his coming of age story that no one has ever heard or understands. And so I'm 71 years old. I was looking to ease out of things, and all 3 of these projects hit me like a daggone locomotive. But they are fascinating. But I do these things to learn. I'm still learning from Lansing. And it's not like I know all this stuff, but when I talk to you, when I talk to other people, things come into focus, things come into clarity. And I start to realize when you look, Lansing is everywhere.
Yeah.
And Lansing, there is this spirit in the American people, and it's not easy to come together in this age. But there's this spirit in the Lansing people. Yeah, not every community was eager to hire Dr. Matt Prophet.
Right. Right.
I don't care if he was a war hero. I don't care if he came through OCS. Not every community was going to empower a guy like Charles Tucker to come in. And people can take issue with certain things about Charles Tucker, but as a young man professional, I think he acquitted himself pretty damn well.
I'd have to.
People,
He's always been a really kind guy. One thing we didn't talk about too much with Earvin, which I hope I got across in my own voice, but Earvin, as you said, Earvin was always very, very kind to me personally, and he always took the time. I mean, I think I told you in our pre-show, when I'd see him at Breslin when I was working basketball, he always said hello, to go up and see him, never try to get in his face too much because he always had his entourage with him, but he was always really cool. He never forgot his people, and his people are Lansing.
got a memory like an elephant. The names he could recall, the stories I've heard just in doing interviews. I've heard stories about him not meeting a guy's wife 6 years before, running into them 6 years later. This is a media guy in basketball. He's not planning to run into him, and he turns and knows the guy's wife's name. I
Yeah,
mean, Earvin is a unique individual,
very much so.
and he and Lansing together, and what happened in Lansing, all that power and responsibility he had as a teenager, that's big stuff.
It
And
is
that
big.
doesn't happen
That is big.
everywhere.
All right, well, let's I'll have this done We're about 3 weeks out.
Send me
So,
the book. I'm sorry.
oh yeah,
And I'm just explaining. I will get to it. I, I am up
it's
against.
small. What it is basically is it's a quality of life book. So you'll find you'll find a lot. I like to say when I describe it, because I was a first time author and it was all self published, and so it's not nearly um, the footnoting is not as well done as like the stuff because I just needed to get this thing done. So there's some of my story,
Is it
but
on Amazon?
it's on Amazon. Yeah. Yeah.
I can share the link after I read it, right?
Oh, absolutely. For sure. If you want to
Well,
put
that's easy to do.
yeah.
And, and I'll say, Tom says it's not this, it's not that, but here's what it is. And see, believe me, I've been doing this a while. And that'll be a good thing. That,
Well,
that will,
the chapters are real small and it bounces around. I think you'll enjoy it in that it has a lot of quality of life issues and a lot of my getting cleaned up and getting my shit straight. Cause I went through, I'm over 25 years now, alcohol free. And so we all went through those partying days, man. I lived in SoCal in the 80s, and living in SoCal in the 80s, let me tell you, people have no idea of the drugs that, I mean, when we were high functioning people, we never got in trouble, but there was so much shit going down. It was fucking crazy. I
I'm
mean,
going to send, you have an ebook, that I can purchase on Amazon, right?
oh yeah, they're all on.
I'm going to send a copy to my 46-year-old daughter.
Okay.
She is making a killing in selling technology services, but it is swamping her life. And I just want her to see that there are some things you can do.
Yeah.
And I'm going to send this to her.
Okay. Okay. Well, send me your address. Please email me that address or text it to me, and I'll get that in the mail.
And I maybe asked you for your addresses to get you some books to give away. Did I do that?
You
Have you
asked,
sent?
I didn't send you the address yet, though. You said you were going to do that, but you know what? I'll send you a text with my address. You send me back yours.
If you can get Sandra to email it, I
I'll
I
do it.
I do much better with email because I got to move shit around and send it right. I'll forward it to the publisher.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not real good with emails. I'm sorry. I'm just
You mean with text messaging?
yeah with text messaging. I'm great with emails.
Okay.
But I don't want to have to call on my wife to do shit for me either because
Oh,
it's just hard. She does a lot.
and Sandy's, she's the backbone of our stuff. When you're talking about your wife, I was thinking about Sandy and all the things that she does, and it's this.
Yeah.
Hey,
Oh,
man,
she's great. I could tell that
without
that's
our
a
support, it's like it ain't happening, man. It just ain't fucking happening. That's,
you
that's it. There's no question about it. All right,
you
brother.
you're looking at a guy I'd be homeless if I hadn't met my wife.
Oh, absolutely. I'm there with you. I mean, any type of financial wherewithal. I mean, I never balanced a checkbook in my life. I always went with a slush fund. If there was like an extra $50 in there, I never balanced nothing. And it's like bouncing checks left and right, getting bill collectors here and there, defaulting on. It's just like,
An effing nightmare.
it was crazy.
My it took my wife years to get me turned around.
Sandy
And
told me
she's still doing it.
when we got married, see, saying the story with her and I is we dated in Everett. Okay. Then I lost track of her. I moved to California and I always had kind of a crush on her. And so I kind of found out that she never got married. I thought she got married. She had a child, our youngest daughter. And so, the guy that she was with was a drinker. And so she fired him. And so I scored. Nobody at the hospital ever, Sandy's the cutest young, she's awesome. And it's like, it's just the blessing for me when we got back together, the whole story of that, when I cold called her, got her number out of the phone book. I mean, before we had the internet, before we had any of that stuff, and her number was in the phone book. She blew me off for 3 months. She was really nice on the phone, but she said, "Hey, I'm going on vacation. I'll call you back when I get back." And she didn't call. Well, it was her mom 3 months later, because she was kind of dating somebody at the time. Her mom told her, "Hey, why don't you get a hold of that guy you went to high school with? Maybe just go have some fun with him, go out, do something." And we were both single parents. I mean, I had full custody of Ashley our oldest, she was like 12 at the time. Lauren, our youngest, she was 4. And so it was just, it was meant to be. And so we got together, and it wasn't more than 6, 7 months later, we got married, and it was just, it's been awesome ever since. And I'll tell you, it's been a growth thing. We've had our struggles, blended but married, that's the way relationships are.
That is the world.
It's exactly. I mean, it's like you're saying, Lansing is it's a global example, as I wrote down here. Hey, I'm not going to hold you up much more. I'll send you the email addresses to you. Please respond back with that. I want to get that book out to you today. Maybe
Yeah, I'll
it
do that.
might go tomorrow because I got it. It's snowing today, and I'm kind of like, I might just hunker down and let this shit ride out.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Tom, before we get off here, I can't thank you enough for this.
oh, dude, you kidding me? I thank you. It's awesome. I love making new friends. You can tell
Yeah,
how it's all,
I
and it's like, if we don't continue to socialize as we grow older, we need to be examples for people out there that need to hear our stories, and we need to encourage them. That's why I like coaching. I love coaching, doing that. I call it performance coaching now. I don't call it life coaching anymore. I call it
right.
coaching. And it's like, you got to raise your level of your performance. If you look at my hashtag dad talks that you see on social media, I mean, I get salty, but I get right down and dirty. And 50% of those videos are for me, my own soul, and my late dad. And 50% is for whoever else is out there that can take something away from that. It's all good, man. It's like, people say, well, why do you do those? I'm like, well, because it's the right thing to do. And it just makes me better. So it's like,
Honesty is what helps other people. It's good for the soul.
it's good for the soul. It absolutely is. Hey, man, great.
All
Roland,
right, brother. Thank you.
I'll be in touch. I'll be in touch. I'll be in touch.
Much appreciated. Best to Sandy too. Thank you
Okay.
both.
Thank you, brother. See ya.
See ya.
All right. Again, post show stuff. I'll be cutting that out for sure. That was a great takeaway. We got so many cool things going to be happening with Roland and David, and talking more about Lansing. And I just can't wait. I can't wait for you guys to get a chance to take a look at this book. It's so fantastic, especially for all of the mid-Michigan people. I mean, there's so many people that I know that are going to enjoy this thing. So, hey, the way it works, I had no idea. I did not know who Roland was. David DeMarco did, but when he put the request into Sandy, and I'm like, sure, yeah, I'll take the book. I'll read it. I had no idea. I had no idea how this guy is a prolific star, and he's so humble and he's so cool. And I just got to say thank you to everyone. Thank you to the universe for bringing people like a Roland Lazenby into my life. So peace out. Love y'all.